our philosophies, girls controlling our destiny, taking control of our lives.
Girl power tells us that girls can do anything. But can this sugary sweet message actually prevent us from fixing a world that doesn't let young women realize their full power? In the 90s, the girl power movement, embodied by pop icons the Spice Girls, brought feminist thinking into the mainstream. It was positioned as a more accessible and fun evolution of old-school feminist ideals.
Like feminism from the 60s revitalized in the 90s.
But girl power was also a shallower commercial version of feminist ideas that were previously a lot more edgy and disruptive. It took what was a political movement and depoliticized it.
Do you think Margaret Thatcher had girl power?
Yes, of course.
Do you think she effectively utilized girl power by funneling money to illegal paramilitary death squads in Northern Ireland?
The philosophy of girl power implied women should empower themselves as individuals instead of dismantling the systems that stood in the way of gender equality. Perhaps the most revealing issue was that many girl power icons were effectively designed by men. 90s girl power heroines created by men, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Powerpuff Girls, and Xena Warrior Princess, all looked great while kicking ass. Meanwhile, popular men's magazines like Maxim, Loaded, and FHM were redefining the feminine ideal as a woman who was loud, brash, and unapologetic like one of the guys, but still, of course, centerfold ready. Today, we can see the dark sides of capitalism-friendly girl power in its descendant, girl boss feminism, which is increasingly condemned. And it's this commodification of feminism, turning it into a sanitized, child-friendly brand that is girl power's most enduring legacy. Here's our take on girl power and what happens when a revolutionary movement is embraced and absorbed by the structures it tries to fight against.
I'm Susanna McCulloch.
I'm Deborah Minoff.
We're really excited to announce that we have a new episode of The Takeaway on Amazon Prime Video YouTube channel. It is on a show we are really enjoying watching, The Wilds.
So wild. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out on Amazon Prime Video. About a group of teenage girls whose plane crashes in the middle of nowhere and find themselves on a deserted island, and then also find themselves part of a fairly sinister, complicated social experiment.
There are so many interesting mysteries going on, meanwhile, in this plot. That's one of the things I love about this show. You're wondering what's really the reason that they're on this island.
Lord of the Flies meets Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. It definitely brings in all of those cool themes.
There's a lot to unpack in the season 1 finale. We find out some answers, but we have even more questions. This is a really important takeaway episode to watch if you're a fan of the show, to try to figure out what we know so far, what is behind this whole mystery, and where it could be going in season 2. Go to the Amazon Prime Video YouTube channel, watch our latest episode of The Takeaway. It really supports us.
Thank you so much for subscribing, and please keep watching.
The first thing to understand about girl power is that its origins were far more radical. Punk band Bikini Kill, pioneers of the riot girl subculture of the early 90s, used the term as the title for their second zine in 1991.
Our fanzines were all about feminism and political issues. I actually wrote a riot girl manifesto in the Bikini Kill fanzine called Girl Power.
That zine contained the Riot Girl Manifesto, which reads as an outwardly political, angry, anti-capitalist statement with lines such as "We hate capitalism in all its forms and see our main goal as sharing information and staying alive," instead of making profits of being cool according to traditional standards.
We weren't making money. We knew we were never going to make money. And it was really important that we made our music. We were on a mission, and we were going to do what we did whether we got attention or not.
Within that manifesto, though, we can see kernels of messaging that would be taken up by the more commercial advocates of girl power. Take the lines, "We are angry at a society that tells us girl equals dumb, girl equals bad, girl equals weak," or "Us girls crave records and books and fanzines that speak to us, that we feel included in and can understand in our own ways." This mainstreaming and commercialization of the riot girl ethos was most clearly seen in the Spice Girls, the British pop group phenomenon formed in 1994. The Spice Girls were explicitly girl power all the time, bluntly preaching empowerment and strength and sisterhood in very mainstream spaces.
We went away and wrote our own stuff, managed ourselves, created the spicy girl power movement.
So we had our own ideas of what we wanted to do.
The availability of these messages on the radio, TV, and at the record store served as a kind of entry-level feminism for young girls who might not have otherwise been exposed, and they basically boiled girl power down to 3 values: confidence, independence, and female friendship.
Spice Girls is fundamentally about friendship. You know, that is what this group runs on.
Female empowerment done within a commercial space isn't inherently bad.
It was like a diluted feminism, but there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that might lead you to the stronger stuff.
And girl power impressively did usher feminist ideas into the mainstream to a powerful degree. This manifested in network television shows featuring badass, assertive, and audaciously unladylike female characters like Xena Warrior Princess, who captured a big following through a take-no-prisoners mentality that felt indebted to the Riot Girl ethos.
Open the gates!
No!
I'm in command here. I said open the gates.
Perhaps the greatest legacy of girl power a la the Spice Girls is that it made feminism feel fun and open to everyone. As activist Nimco Ali told Stylist, feminism is often heavy with academia or too technical. What the Spice Girls did wasn't life-saving, but it was dynamic. And by modeling that girls could be sporty or outspoken as well as girly and fashionable, it pushed against gender polarization, or the idea that men and women are polar opposites who must live and behave in different ways appropriate to their gender.
You can wear your wonder bra, much makeup as you like, but, you know, still have intelligence, have some balls.
At the same time, because of the Spice Girls and girl power's rapid rise to immense popularity, the market transformed the idea of girl power into extremely profitable merchandise and Barbie dolls, playing into the kind of clothes and dolls female stereotypes both Riot Girl and girl power claimed to fight against.
Girl power is moving merchandise by the tonload. 7 to 14-year-olds are clamoring to buy the stuff stacked up on the shelves around me here.
Even the one-word monikers each Spice Girl was known by, sporty, ginger, baby, posh, and scary, encouraged young fans to compare themselves to a narrow archetype of womanhood that's mostly about appearance. And in Mel B's case, many now question if labeling the one black woman in the group as scary had racist undertones. Whenever a political movement that seeks to empower the disempowered gets co-opted by mainstream capitalist forces, it's likely that those original ideas will get twisted to instead reinforce the existing structures of power. And the girl power of the 1990s did get used to essentially put forward pretty young females as symbols of masculine ideas of strength and intense individualism. Buffy the Vampire Slayer turned a regular teen girl into an action heroine and subverted tropes of Valley Girl blondes. Yet as professor and avid Buffy studier Lorna Jowett wrote, Buffy may be a Barbie with a kung fu grip, but she's still a Barbie.
And I just germinated this idea about how much I'd like to see a blonde girl go into a dark alley, get attacked by a big monster, and then kill it. That was sort of the genesis for the idea of the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Moreover, the show's feminist themes have been somewhat tainted by reports that its creator, Joss Whedon, allegedly abused his power and has been verbally abusive and cruel to female actors. Meanwhile, girl power actively disavowed an old-fashioned political idea of feminism. As Jerry Halliwell put it in 2017, 20 years ago, if you said the word feminism, you thought of those bra-burning marching protesters. It was quite tough and harsh. For me, girl power was a much more punchy way of saying it. The Powerpuff Girls villainized a more explicit invocation of feminism.
That's right, you sad excuse of a man. You've been rendered completely helpless by a woman.
Girl power's message also coincided with the rise of a specific type of woman in pop culture. Enter the ladette. This guy's girl could binge drink, be sexually promiscuous, get into brawls, and show a blatant disregard for long-standing female etiquettes.
So I'm a party woman. I only deal with one aspect of the whole gift department, the essential Christmas item, the corkscrew.
Carolyn Jackson and Penny Tinkler write that ladettes presented as occupying space outside the traditional feminine domestic sphere, and crucially, as taking space once regarded as the principal or sole preserve of men. In the UK, this manifested in the hard-partying, ultra-cool aesthetic of supermodel Kate Moss, and in television hosts like Zoe Ball, Denise Van Outen, and Sarah Cox.
Hopefully after this show I'll be making love. If it's up for it.
In British sitcom Game On, one of the lads, Mandy, swigs beer, dresses casually, and has sex instead of relationships. In the US, the face of MTV's reality dating show Singled Out, and later the star of her own sketch show, Jenny McCarthy subverted people's idea of a submissive former Playboy bunny with a loud, unapologetic, and confident brand of bro-y femininity.
Ooh, is my engine hot, or is it just me?
Listen, buddy, why don't you save your breath for your inflatable girlfriend, okay?
Pamela Anderson rose to prominence in the same era with a persona that was, while sweeter and soft-spoken, always cool, laid back, and ready to go along with whatever the guys wanted to talk about.
I bet you don't go to the bathroom for weeks at a time.
No, that's not true.
Really?
Farts are never not funny.
No doubt, many women liked watching or identifying with plenty of freewheeling ladettes who weren't repressed or proper and got to enjoy being sexy while having a lot of fun. But in the ladette, we also see the genesis of what would become known as the cool girl trope, expertly dissected in Gone Girl.
Cool girl is hot. Cool girl is gay. Cool girl is fun. Cool girl never gets angry at her man.
Raha Murtuza writes the main problem with the cool girl is that she's meant to put down other women. The idea is that other girls are obsessed with makeup and clothes, while the cool girl likes football and buffalo wings instead. And you can see how this partly emerged from these proto-cool girls of the 90s and aughts, who combined feminine beauty with boorish male fraternity culture, yielding an easily sellable product for male-oriented entertainment. Meanwhile, even though they were supposedly empowered women carving out space in male arenas, these pre-cool girls could end up receiving a fair amount of toxic backlash and moral panic.
They're truly frightening, violent, selfish, with no sense of shame. But not only are they hurting those around them, far more worrying is the damage they're doing to themselves.
Simran Hans explicitly links the shaming, misogynist tabloid culture of the aughts to the supposed gains made in the 90s, saying we'd had the rise of ladettes and this reclaiming of being a boy's girl. The 2000s felt like a punishment for women trying to get in on the act. The phrase girl power may not be used with the impunity it was in the 90s, but we can still see its legacy in the blueprint of popular commercial feminism today, especially in the modern archetype of the girl boss.
I'm the one who created this company from nothing. I'm the vision. I'm Nasty Gal.
In the mid-2010s, peaking with the Me Too and Time's Up moments of 2017, girl boss characters and real-life female CEOs were framed as empowering disruptors. But after a number of girl bosses, including the creator of the name, Nasty Gal founder Sophia Amoruso, fell from grace, many questioned whether becoming financially successful while being a woman was really enough to be championed as a feminist icon. The girl boss became known for fostering toxic work environments, leaning into her privilege, or just not being any better than the guy CEO. But it's her hypocrisy of claiming that her success leads to all women's success that makes her so hated.
Tickets to this event start at $300. Part of Waham's mission statement is lifting up every woman, but can you really do that if the price point is so inaccessible?
The girl boss can be seen as the worst incarnation of girl power, a woman of privilege who performatively espouses feminist ideals while leaving other women out of the capitalist patriarchy ruling class she's infiltrated for her own personal profit. But this gets at the underlying problem. Any capitalist-driven version of feminism, or any movement that's supposed to be about disrupting the status quo, will inevitably become about making more money for people already in power. And it's not hard to see that big commercial narratives today, from superheroines to heist films to Disney princesses, often espouse a popular feminism that's really a descendant of feel-good, reductive girl power. As feminism has become more indisputably mainstream, it's been increasingly commodified and watered down to the point where one can brand themselves as a feminist without really thinking about what that means or meaning anything by it. There's a girl power-esque, marketing-driven idea that if we teach young people not to buy into gender inequality, it won't exist.
What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
Contemporary children's books transform the stories of empowered women into bedtime stories.
Extraordinary women, past and present, from Cleopatra to Serena Williams. And so the idea was to create this collection of bedtime stories.
And in spirit of 90s girl power, this surface-level feminism seems to assume that any woman who obtains power or prominence is automatically a feminist icon. Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls includes Margaret Thatcher, who, though historically notable for being the first UK woman prime minister, has been described as an anti-feminist and even called feminism poison. Revealingly, Thatcher was also heralded by Geri Halliwell as the First Lady of Girl Power.
She was a woman that moved mountains and so powerful.
Today, another largely superficial incarnation of girl power feminism is the Disney princess girl boss. Emerging in the late 2000s, these bolder, independent female characters have mind-blowing powers, embrace self-defense, and sometimes openly mock the idea of fairy tale love.
You can't marry a man you just met.
They were a response to public backlash against the traditional Disney princesses, who came to be perceived as too submissive, passive, or defined by their relationship to a prince. But Enchanted's Giselle, Tangled's Rapunzel, and Frozen's Anna still fit within a proven, commercially viable Disney movie formula. Girl power is again leveraged as a marketing tool. Promisingly though, even today's commercial, popular feminist tales are getting more political and starting to acknowledge that systemic problems need systemic and not just symbolic, individualistic solutions. The adaptation of and revitalized interest in Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, whose red robes attained cultural icon status while representing real threats to women's reproductive freedom in our time.
We are seeing the outfits a lot, but as a protest symbol.
Embodies how girl power messaging in today's film and TV can and should be confrontationally political. Girl power and the Spice Girls deserve credit for changing the global conversation at a time when huge all-girl bands weren't really a thing, let alone bands made up of young working-class women. Riot Grrrl may have called for a revolution, but what we got was more of an evolution, a change by degrees that has been meaningful over the years, even though we still get steps backward.
More than 12 million women lost their jobs during the pandemic, and over 4.5 million have not returned to the workforce.
But feminism today is taking on a more collective, intersectional mantra that's more in line with the true countercultural origins of girl power. The ideals of 90s fun-loving girl power have become fused with political feminist action by a generation of women who grew up with figures like the Spice Girls as role models.
Many of our social justice problems like racism and sexism are often overlapping, creating multiple levels of social injustice.
And mainstream voices across industries are getting the message through that women power can't be achieved through empowerment of the individual, but through concrete shockwaves to the system.
For equality in offices, in kitchens, in factories, in prisons.
Check out The Takeaway, our latest episode on The Wild season finale. There's a mystery, it is a wild show, and it really has so much to talk about.
And we think you guys are going to be really interested in this video because it really digs into what does it look like if you throw a bunch of young girls together and you put them on an island and you said, figure it out, if you just had a society that was all women, what would happen? We see them going wild, they're accessing their primal selves, they're being really powerful. It's definitely not conflict-free, but there's sisterhood too, and there's an unlocking of their true selves. So I think it's a really interesting carrying out of that thought experiment.
What has girl power been represented as? What have we been told it is? Is it the Spice Girls version of it? Is it the Legally Blonde version? Or is it the badass Black Widow?
It's one of those contradictions that girls are powerful and we are powerful when we come together, and it's true. You want to make sure that you're living that rather than just letting somebody get rich off of turning it into a shallow message. And that's actually the whole conflict that's at the heart of The Wilds.
It's not just about the relationships with others, but it's the relationship with yourself, and it really digs into that. Which characters do you think you most relate to or think you'd be from The Wilds?
I have some Leah in me, but I also have some Nora, which is funny because they're almost positioned as these opposites. Leah's very emotional and obsessive, and Nora is very detached and analytical. But I sort of think I'm somehow a blend of those two. I'm very emotionally analytical.
I see that. Interestingly, I have a bit of Fatine in me, who I think is a bit more of the id and the emotional, and she's not scared of pleasure and she's not scared of enjoying, and I think that's a really important piece. I think there's a little of Dot in me. I think I would try to pull out whatever tools I could in terms of surviving and helping those around me. I certainly see, some Leah in me of nonconformity and of how sometimes the desire to get to the truth or figure something out can be considered almost to the point of obsession. At what point do you trust yourself? How many times does someone say to you, let it go? And you're like, I don't want to let it go.
Go to the Amazon Prime Video YouTube channel, watch our latest episode of The Takeaway. It really supports us.
Thank you so much for subscribing.
Let us know which Amazon show you want to take away on next.